Good evening. It is October 24th. It's 7:05 p.m. So you are tuning into Legit Paranormal. It's being hosted by the Genius Kev tonight and Buddy Thayer. You may be asking, where is King Michael? Well, he was on a special paranormal investigation of his own in New Jersey today, and he did see something that can only be described as paranormal activity because the New York Football Giants won a game. They beat the Carolina Panthers. It was a weird game. They somehow it was like 25-3, something like that. So I'm sure King will tell us all about it if he can. In fact, dial in. We'll try. He might be on another plane of existence for all I know at this moment. And one thing King always worries about is the handsomeness quotient of the show. And when I think of raising the handsomeness quotient, I always think of Buddy Thayer. Buddy, how are you doing? You coming out of the darkness for us?
Coming in from the darkness. It's been a depressing week. I watched my poor Red Sox lose out of the ALCS to the garbage can pounding Houston Astros, who will hopefully go on to lose to a former Boston team, the Atlanta Braves. Also, my Miami Dolphins team is the absolute shit of the NFL, and we look terrible. However, to brighten my day, I went out to Treehouse Brewery on Friday, and this is a ghost. It's called Ghost Emoji. It's a lovely blend of Mosaic and Nelson and citrus hops, and it tastes like grassy citrus, dank blueberries, overripe melons, and tropical fruit. That's what it's described as. It's a lovely 8.2% alcohol by volume, and it's brewed right there in Treehouse, which is in Charlton. It's in Deerfield. It's out on the Cape. So that brings a big smile to my face, as does our guest this evening.
Right. Buddy, this is the first time you've mentioned a brewery that I actually have been to, that I actually know exists.
Look at you. I mean, it's a big one. They're awesome. I love Treehouse. Yep. I only go there like 3 times a year, but oh my God, fantastic ale.
Right. So would you like to do the honors and introduce our guest?
I would. My other source of excitement tonight joins us from, I believe, Coventry, Rhode Island. Please, if I'm wrong, don't kill me. She's a longtime paranormal investigator. She has collaborated and inspired many books written about the paranormal, about specific paranormal locations. Hopefully Fort Adams we'll talk about tonight. And she's one of the nicest ladies I know in this field. Maggie Florio.
Welcome, Maggie. How you doing?
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Oh.
Good. So as for me to host this show, I'm contractually obligated to ask you the following couple of questions. Florio sounds like an Italian last name. Are you in fact Italian, or is your husband Italian, or you know, where's your ethnicity stand with regards to Italian only? The rest of it we don't care about.
My husband.
Okay. Right, because
at all, no. By marriage.
Okay, because King Michael has this theory that Italians are taking over paranormal. So as soon as we see a last name that sounds Italian, we have to kind of figure all that out. But okay, so you're by marriage. We'll take it. Buddy's not Italian, but he's not Italian by marriage either. So we'll kind of skip all that.
My mother's from North Providence. That's about as close as I get to being Italian. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So we can get. So now that that's out of the way, we can actually get to a real conversation here. So I watched a couple of your interviews on other shows like YouTube. I spent a little time on your website, and Buddy provided some background. But I was really interested in kind of how you got started in this sort of field. And I don't want to start with how you became an investigator. Maybe sort of your first paranormal experience as a child.
Okay. The first experience that I remember as a child is when I was 8 years old. I woke up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, and there was a woman standing at the window, which was next to my bed. And it was one of those really hot, humid, gross summer nights. And my bedroom was on the second floor. And back then, only rich people had air conditioners, and we were not rich. So my window was wide open. The curtains were open. and just to let in any air, but there was no air at all. And this woman was standing, she was like facing me. She was holding the curtain back, and the light from the street was, shining on her. I couldn't see her face. I couldn't see from like the mid calf down, I would say. I couldn't see. But I could see very well, her bosom, and I could see her hand, I could see her arm, I could see her dress. And I remember thinking, how can she be dressed like that? Because here I am, I was 8 years old. All I had on was a pair of underwear and a sheet over me, and I was very uncomfortable. And I'm thinking, how could she stand being dressed like that? And so I watched her. She wasn't moving. She was solid, solid. The dress had long sleeves, a high neck. It was very old fashioned looking. It was like what we would call a calico fabric, kind of a dark fabric with little, patterns on it, and a little bit of lace around the sleeve. And her hand was very like delicate looking, and it wasn't like all wrinkled or anything. So it looked like, maybe somebody in their 20s, 30s, and she just stood there. And so I laid there watching her, and I said, I must be dreaming. I remember thinking I must be dreaming. So I like closed one eye and opened it, closed the other eye, opened it, closed both eyes, opened them real fast, and she was still there. So after a while, I fell back to sleep. I didn't feel threatened or anything, but I also didn't want to say anything because I wasn't sure, what was going to happen. And my parents were sleeping in the next room. I didn't want to wake them up. So, so I fell back to sleep. And the next morning I got up, and so it must have been a Saturday night, because the next morning I got up, and my father was, I went downstairs to the kitchen. My dad was cooking breakfast at the stove, and my sister and my mom were drinking their coffee, reading the Sunday paper. And I asked my mother, I said, were you in my room last night? And she said, no, I wasn't. And then I asked my sister, who's 9 years older than me. So she was a teenager. She was like 17 at the time. And she's like, what would I be doing in your room? And I said, well, there was a woman in my room last night, and she was standing at the window, looking outside. And my dad very calmly turns around from the stove, and he looks, and he says, must have been a ghost. And I was like, yeah, okay. And my mother was like, oh no, there's no such thing as ghosts. She must have been dreaming. And I'm like, no, I wasn't dreaming, because like I did the eye thing. I'm 8 years old. I did the eye thing, Mom,
Yeah.
I wasn't dreaming. And from that point on, I was like obsessed with ghosts. Like I, read every book in the local library that I could get my hands on. And I just, was really into ghosts for, a long time. And my house, did have activity, and I wasn't the only one that experienced it.
So yeah, I would definitely want to get into that. Oh, sorry, go ahead, buddy.
I was just going to ask you, were you the only one? Did the other members of your family have experiences to validate you, or?
My father did. He actually saw two men at the foot of his bed one night. Same thing. He woke up in the middle of the night. There were two men dressed like in, I guess, colonial type dress, not like a uniform or anything, but like, like old fashioned. And he sat up and said, who are you? And he said they went up like in a wisp of smoke, like they just went like that. And and then another time he said he woke up, and they were standing next to his bed, like right next to his bed. And so he reached over and turned the light on, and they were gone. So, but my sister and my mother, they never experienced anything. My sister is a total skeptic. And whenever I told my mother anything that happened, she just said it was because I had an overactive imagination. So
now that was you talking to your sister. Do you have any kind of theory? Like, do you think she had maybe some experiences when she was younger and then like tuned it out because she was scared? Because it almost sounds like she's gone so far to the other side that maybe something did happen. Like, have your parents ever said anything about it?
no.
Okay.
No. She really thinks the paranormal thing is a load of, you know what?
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I find that interesting that you say that, Maggie, how you and your father had experiences and saw things where your mother and your sister didn't. I find in my own experiences, myself, my mother, my mother's aunt, my aunt, my mother's sister, we have all had various paranormal experiences over the years. In this very house that I'm sitting in right now, hundreds. But like my father doesn't. Members of my father's family didn't, and they just never believed in it. Do you find it to be maybe hereditary? Do you think that this vision or whatever we're seeing, our ability to see or to perceive the paranormal, is hereditary?
I don't know, because I think my father and I were more open to it. I don't think it was hereditary, because I don't remember any of my cousins saying anything about it. My father's mother was very superstitious.
Right.
Like, if you went to their house, you had to leave by the same door you came in. And if you were on the stairs, you never passed anyone on the stairs. Like, if I was going down their stairs and somebody was coming up, one of us would have to like get off the stairs and let the other one pass. That was bad luck if you put someone on the stairs. I remember going on a trip with my grandparents and my parents. We went up to Quebec to visit some relatives. So now you know.
Yeah.
And we stayed with them in an old farmhouse, and I was rooming with my grandmother, my meme. And so the adults were staying up, playing cards and drinking beer and, and talking and laughing. And I went to bed. And when my meme said she came in the room, I sat up in bed and I started talking to her, like just, carrying on a conversation. She went into the bathroom for just a couple minutes. She came back in the room and I was sound asleep. And that totally freaked her out. Her out. So she was very superstitious, but I don't know that she had any of. I know that I have a cousin on the other side, on my mother's side, that has the ability to feel changes in the energy of a place, and has had some psychic type experiences. So I don't. It could be, but it's not from my father's side.
Okay, it's interesting because we've kind of heard a lot of people say like that sort of that stuff seems to run in families and things like that. So it sounds like they're maybe your father and you, but it sounds like you're probably the most. It seems like you have the most sort of ability in able to kind of see and communicate with these spirits. That sounds like that's probably fair to say. Now, your house that you grew up in, you mentioned your father seeing people kind of dressed in colonial garb, and you mentioned the woman that you described. It sounded like she was dressed in older sort of clothing. Like, does it have any kind of like? Was it a very old house? Does it go back that period? Did anything significant happen there?
That's the fun. Moved into a brand new house.
Oh, wow.
In a brand new street. As a matter of fact, when we moved in, there were so few houses. My dad used to like to sunbathe in the backyard in the nude because there was nobody around, those French. So
yes, I do.
So, but the thing is, I remember growing up. I was very young when we moved in. I was like 2 years old when we moved in, and I remember I had these little plastic dinosaurs that used to come in cereal boxes, like a prize, and I collected the whole set. And one by one, they disappeared. Like, I don't know what happened. Yeah. And like, it was so upsetting, and I remember that. And I remember that we had a swamp in behind our yard, and there was a mound of dirt in our yard. So, and I also remember my mother saying that she thought the guy that built our house was shady. He was sketchy.
Oh,
he was sketchy. And my father later on, after my mother had passed, we were talking about, the neighborhood and stuff. And he says, your mother never liked that house. She never liked that house. And he didn't really specify, but I did some research because, it's what I did. Mm-hmm. And I found out that the land was part of the Knight Farm, which was a huge farm. And that, this was a parcel that probably got sold off by the family little by little. These old farms, they would sell off parcels and to developers. And I really think what happened was, in these old farms, if a member of the family passed, bury them on the property, under the old oak tree kind of thing. I think that's what I think. They mistakenly built our house on top of one of these little family plots. We always had trouble. We always had trouble with our septic system overflowing. I think that there was a lot of fill there. That's why the big pile of dirt in the backyard. I think that the land was partially fill, and they just filled it and built the house, and probably just covered whatever was there.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it sounds like the beginnings of the plot to the movie Poltergeist, where instead of it was like an Indian burial ground, Native American burial ground.
Funnily enough, this kind of stuff happens in Rhode Island.
Yeah, 37.
Yeah, there's a house in Smithfield. A friend of mine, it's near a friend of mine's house, and they built it right on top of a historical cemetery. There are gravestones literally like 5 feet from this person's foundation, so
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a lot of activity that happens in that house too. So,
yeah.
Well, that makes sense. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and then I want to get back to sort of your timeline, because you hit on something that comes up a lot, and something I'm really curious about. Maybe it's more on the parapsychology angle, but like, let's say I don't have gifts and you do, and like that scenario where the woman was in your room. Would my brain just not allow me to see this spirit there, whereas you're open enough to see it? And then the follow-up question is, can I be sort of trained, and are there things I could do to sort of open my perception?
That's in the room. My husband also had experiences in the house, but he's open. He has abilities as well, but I don't know if you would have seen her. If you would have, I really don't know if you would have been able to see her.
Yeah. And that's what kind of always gets me because, like, you know, my education is as an engineer, so I'm used to kind of, you know, the scientific method, the theory, hypothesis, do the experiments, conclusion, and we've had other people say similar things, and I kind of wonder, well, how will this field ever really advance to something that, like, will it ever advance to something objective? Like, if you look at and you say, look, there's a woman right there, and I say I can't see her. Is she there or is she not there? You know what I mean? Like, it's a vexing question for me. I'm always curious what people's opinions are on that.
I think you would be able to pretty solid, you know, to like a real person, flesh and blood person. I would think that anybody else in the room would have been able to see her.
Okay.
Or hear her.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's what I was going to ask. Oh, sorry.
Didn't make any sound, so you know. But I think, you know, if you had been in the room, you probably would have been able to see her.
Okay.
She was solid.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it was like kind of transparent or just like a shadow. Maybe not, but.
Okay, interesting. And buddy, I just want to ask you. So, in your time as an investigator, have you seen someone that sort of as solid as what Maggie's describing? Like, because that seems like something that's
I think. All right, so I have seen apparitions. Most of the apparitions, I'd say, like 90% of the apparitions I've seen in front of my face are more like, I don't want to call them shadow people because I think there's a fine line there. I see a shadow. I see that blackness. I see head and shoulders. I can see the walk. I can see the shoulder strut. I can see you can see, like, you can tell if somebody's wearing like a long dress or a long coat, but it's not per se a person. However, there's other people, like in my family, like my own mother in this own house that I'm living in upstairs. Walked in the living room and saw a man standing there that she fully thought to be a person. She did the thing with Deb. She closed her eyes for a few seconds, opened up, and he was gone. But she described someone perfectly that looked like a great uncle of mine who was related to the woman who built this house. So I think I've only seen once a figure in my peripheral that looked like a person. I fully expected to be a person. When I turned and I looked at it, it was a shadow walking away. But for me, I think it's one's own how people perceive it, because I know other people some people who just see them as shadows, where somebody else will see them as people. You know, your own perception.
All right, very, very, very interesting. Okay, so Mags, so kind of getting a little bit back onto the chronology here. So this is, you talked a little bit about when you were young. You talked about the house, all that kind of stuff, and then I know just from looking at your bio, in 2003 is when you kind of got involved, when you had another experience and you got involved with around paranormal group. Now, in between sort of your childhood and that point, were you having experiences like on a regular basis? And then I guess the follow up will be, what made you decide to to reach out to a group and then join a group?
Okay, I have another question about if you could train yourself.
Yeah.
To see spirit. I did take a mediumship class for a year to learn how to work with my abilities, because I felt like they were kind of scattered. They didn't have any control over them. And I wanted to have a little bit of discipline. And I think you could probably learn how to be more spiritually aware and how to open yourself up. I think meditation is a good way to start. You know, just being really silent and just, you know, allowing whatever comes in to come in within reason, of course, because you always have to put up a barrier to anything negative. But allowing, you don't want anything bad in, but if you set your intention that you want to receive messages from spirit, and you get into them, and just the good ones, and maybe say a prayer, or hold a crystal, or wear a medallion or whatever, for protection. I think that's a good way to start, or take a class, learn about it. I think it is something that everybody has,
Okay.
but not everybody develops it the same way. It's kind of like a talent, like some people are good at art, and some people are good at,
Yeah.
and some people are good at, different, have artistic abilities. And, if they develop them, they can become great. If they don't, meh,
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. You learn to play the piano, right? I mean, you might not have any musical ability, but if you go and take classes and stuff, you could learn how to play the piano. You might even, become great. Never know.
No, that's a really good way to put it. I don't think I've heard it put that way before. It's like everyone has some capacity there. You could probably develop it, but it sounds like some people are just born they're just naturally wired into it. Like Mozart, like he could play piano at 5. He was writing symphonies at 5, something like that. So yeah, that's a good way to. I like kind of the analogy there. Well, thank you for getting back to that. Because I always like to hear kind of that question, because one of the things we always talk about on the show is that Mike and myself, like, we don't have these kind of experiences, and like, what is there anything that we could do to kind of hone those abilities? And so that's kind of why I always bring it up.
So your question about I would have is occasional, I while I lived in the house, when I was in the house, I would occasionally have experiences there, but I would also have experiences like when I lived at college. I had a couple of weird things happen. But it wasn't all the time, and it wasn't like a steady thing. It was just occasionally I would have things happen. Things would happen. I had, growing up, I had two loves: music and ghosts. And when I got to the age of 10, I started playing the saxophone, and I kind of decided to go with the music, and kind of, the other stuff kind of, I would say, kind of fell to the wayside. But like I said, I would still experience stuff, but I wasn't interested in developing it. I wanted to develop my music. I wanted to, become a better musician. So I concentrated on that, and I went to school for that. I went to college for that, and that's what, and then I graduated college. I got married, had a family. So life happened. And yes, things did happen along the way. So in December 2002, my husband and I attended a party at the Aldrich Mansion in Warwick. Beautiful place. And it was a Christmas party. It was decorated so beautifully. It was a very warm night for December. And I think, was that on my birthday? Sure. Yeah, that was my birthday. So we went, and my husband went to find some friends that we're meeting up with. And I went to the coat room to put my coat away. And in the coat room, you go down a little ramp, and there's a set of French doors, double doors, and they had long handles, and one of the handles had like the sleigh bells on the strap. So I went, and I was hanging up my coat. There was a couple there, and they left. I'm hanging up my coat, and I see the handles kind of jiggling, like somebody was trying to open the door from the other side. And I'm like, oh, somebody's trying to come in, you know. So I go over to the door, and there were like glass panes, and they had curtains in them. So I opened the curtain, and there was nothing but an empty hallway.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So, you know, like I said, I've had stuff happen. So I'm like, okay. So I went and joined my husband, and we're sitting around talking, and I saw this really beautiful young woman walking by. She had dark hair, and it was all put up, and she had this beautiful like red velvet dress on. And I looked up, and she smiled at me, and I smiled at her and nodded. And then somebody at the table got my attention, so I started talking to them. And then I looked up, and the lady was gone. So I'm looking around the room, and I'm looking around. I don't see her anywhere. And I didn't see her for the rest of the night. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of weird. Oh, there were a lot of people there, but, you know, I would kind of see the same people throughout the night, and I didn't see her again. And then it was time to leave. And I asked my husband to come into the coat room with me. See, I'm not. So I'm like, come in the coat room with me. He's like, why? I'm like, I'll tell you when we get in there. So we get in the coat room, right? And I'm telling him what happened. And we're standing there, and one door opened and then closed.
Oh.
Opened, and we're just like with this stupid expression. And so I went over to the doors, and I grabbed them, and I pulled them open, and this rush of like ice cold air, like, I mean, colder than cold, like went right through me. So I slammed the doors, and Dave said, let's get out of here. So he grabs my hand, we're going up the ramp, and I said, Merry Christmas. And one of the straps with the bells on it shook.
Oh, wow.
So got out of there pretty fast. And so I got home, and I'm, you know, all the way home, I'm thinking, is that place haunted? Did that really happen? What the heck was that? So I went home, and I went on the computer, and I searched under, I searched under Rhode Island Paranormal. And the website for the Rhode Island Paranormal Research Group came up. And I checked it out, and I'm like, you know, it looked very professional. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And there was a little place where you could click and send them an email. So I sent him an email, you know, this is what happened to us. And is this place haunted? And if so, who's haunting it? So within like a day or two, I heard back from the director, Andy Laird, and he said, yes, it is haunted. Sounds like you encountered two of the spirits that haunt the place. One is a little girl who likes to play tricks on people. And the other, another one, and she's been known to hang out in the coat room and upstairs on the second floor. And the other, another spirit is the daughter of Senator Aldrich, who died a very tragic death. She either fell or jumped off a balcony on the day of her sister's wedding. And she says, and this woman is like dressed to the nines. She shows up in people's photographs. People think that she's a guest because, you know, they have weddings and stuff there. And she'll just show up in their pictures and stuff. And the other one is a caretaker, and he's seen outside on the property. He's like, who's that character from Harry Potter? He's like Filch, you know, this really
and the cat,
mean old man. And people have actually quit after seeing him because he's just so So I kind of entered into this dialogue with Andy, started emailing back and forth, started telling him about my experiences growing up in the, in a house that had activity. And my son at the time, he was in 6th grade. He was very interested in what mom was doing on the computer.
Huh.
And so for his science project that year, he wanted to go on a ghost hunt. So I'm like, okay, Andy, how do I do this? So he said, well, there's a very haunted cemetery right near you. He says, bring a camera, some kind of audio recorder, whatever. And just go and, walk around, ask questions, take pictures, So that's what we did. The 3 of us, my husband, myself, and my son went to this cemetery, and I borrowed a camera from my sister. I didn't even have a camera. I bought a little mini cassette recorder from Betty's, along with the little mini cassette tapes. And that was it. We went, we walked around. I took pictures. We asked questions. At one point, we were going from the cemetery is on a main road, and I wanted to go to the back of the cemetery. And we started going to the back of the cemetery, and this wind came up. It was almost like pushing us back. And my son's like, no, we shouldn't go back there. Okay, talk about the not falling far from the tree. Okay, you talk about their inherited abilities. Okay,
Yeah.
My son is just like off the charts, and but he wants nothing to do with it. So that's
Really?
Yeah, nothing to do with it. Not anymore. But back then, he was kind of it. So we were there for like maybe an hour. It was cold, it was February. There was snow on the ground. So we got home, and I was going over the audio recording, and damn, if I didn't get if I got EVP, I was like, what is this? This is crazy. There was a child's voice. It wasn't my son. It sounded like a little child's voice. And at the point where we came back after that wind, my husband was reading some stones, and there was a little voice that said, "Don't go back."
Wow.
Go back to, don't go back to that area. Don't go back. And it was like, what is that? And I got a gunshot. I got the sound of a train, which was really wild, because there used to be trains that went by there, but they hadn't gone by there for like 40 years. Very strange. And then when I got my pictures back, I had streaks. I had an orb.
Wow.
Big bright orb. I know the thing about orbs, but there was a burial. It was like a double headstone. It was a husband and wife, and there was a nice potted what are those plants that are red?
Poinsettia?
Poinsettia. And I thought, I'm like, isn't that nice? There's a beautiful plant there, and it's so nice. They're buried together, and look at the stone. I'm like, I'm going to take a picture of that. And I took a picture, and sure enough, right in the middle above the stone was a huge honking orb. And that was the only orb I got. So, it wasn't a bug, not in February. So I was hooked. I'm like, I'm totally hooked. My son got a B on his project. So that was very nice. And so I talked to Andy, and he says, we have an opening in the group. He says, are you interested? And I talked to my husband and my son, and they're like, yeah, go for it. You should do that. You should totally do that. And the timing of it was really good, because in 2002, I was a professional musician for 20 years. And in 2002, I got Meniere's, and I lost most of the hearing in my ear, and it left me with a hearing loss and a constant ringing in my ear, a tinnitus or tinnitus. And I had to stop. I had to stop playing. So there was like this big gap, this big hole in my life. Like, okay, what do I do now? I lost my night job. Like, you know, I had a day job. Of course, all musicians have to have a day job. I had a day job working in, you know, doing office work and secretarial work and stuff. But what do I do at night now? You know, no rehearsals, no performances. And, you know, what do I do with my nights and weekends? So this was like the perfect thing for me. I got back to that first love of hope. Kind of was a complete circle.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's interesting. It's very interesting that it was your first love when you had to step away from it for a while, and it sounds like now you're back with a vengeance almost. I want to leave a little time because I think Buddy wants to talk about the site, the Fort Adams site, but it sounds like you have both the sort of innate gifts, and you're also good with the equipment, because a lot of people we talk to, you know, say, some people say, I don't want any equipment, I just go in and I feel and I see and all that stuff, and other people are almost on the opposite end of the spectrum, and they're like, if I don't have an EVP or on the picture, it didn't happen. It sounds like you're getting results both ways. So when you're on an investigation, I guess, are you always kind of bringing the tools in case that's what it takes, or do you get a feel that this one's going to be more intuitive? Like, you know, how do you approach like a new investigation?
Well, the tools, they verify feeling. I use to verify and to show other people, you know, like I can say, oh, you know, this room feels heavy and like my head feels like it's in, like, you know, being squeezed. But if I'm saying that and I have an EMF meter that's spiking, I can, you know, show them, I can verify, see, you know, this is what I'm feeling, you know. So I was trained when I joined the group, I was trained to do both. And so that's how I work. I use gadgets and I also use my abilities.
Okay, excellent. Yeah,
and they're both tools, you know, both tools. They, you know.
Excellent. Okay, so I wanted you to tell one story that I listened to in one of your YouTube interviews that really kind of blew my mind, and then I'll turn it over to Buddy for the Fort Adams stuff. But the Charles W. Morgan, the whaling ship in Mystic, and I saw some of the things on their website, and that story blew my mind. So if you wouldn't mind giving a kind of a quick retell, I know you've told it before, but for our viewers.
So which one is that?
Yeah.
A whole lot of things.
You pick one of the encounters on the Charles W. Morgan that it maybe kind of talk us through how it happened, because I know you saw various spirits on there and you confirmed their names and all that stuff. So,
okay. So the first time I went on board the Morgan with Andy Laird and the director of public relations, we had, you know, met with him to talk about, you know, the investigation, what we're going to do and whatever. And we went on board, and it was my job to scope out where we were going to put the cameras, the video cameras. What they call the static cameras or the infrared cameras. So it was my job to kind of scope things out and say, okay, you know, oh yeah, we can put one up there. So I went all the way down to the bottom of the boat. Andy and the director, well, we'll call him the public relations guy, were on one deck up. They were in the blubber room. And so I was down below, and I'm looking around, you know, looking for places to put the camera. And I have this vision. Like sometimes I physically see spirit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like a picture pops in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like a movie. So like this movie in my head, there was this man and he was telling men, there were other men working and they were stashing barrels in the bow of the boat in this particular area in the bow of the boat. And I got the name McKenna. This just popped into my head. McKenna. And I felt like he was like a foreman kind of person. Like, you know, and so I went upstairs and Andy and the public relations guy were talking, and the forecast, the forecastle, as they call it, with slept was like further down, but I could see it. And again, I got a picture in my head. There was this guy standing there. He had on like a white work shirt and breeches, and he's doing this. I'm like, excuse me. So I go down there and I go in there and I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, what do you want? You called me here, you know, and this guy was like, he was a very happy like spirit. Like he was the guy that would like, you know, play the accordion and like play cards, you know, maybe drink a little rum. And, you know, he was just this, and I'm like, okay, what's your name? John Adams. I'm like, oh, well, right, like the president. Okay, all right. So they left, and I gave those names to people that were doing the research, and they found there was a McKenna, someone with the last name McKenna, who was like a boss, you know, that, you know, was like, no, he wasn't. He was a little higher up than the other guy would want to do. And yeah, there was somebody named John Adams that worked on the ship. So, and yeah, it was pretty crazy. That was like a wonderful, wonderful place to investigate. We went back there when we were redoing it. Remember, they took it out of the water.
Yeah.
For redoing it, and I didn't pick up anything.
Wow.
Like they were all gone. Like all of them. They were just, there was nothing. It was, you know, it was strange.
Huh. Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, it almost sounds kind of sad because usually you think, you know, you want to help something pass and that kind of thing. It doesn't sound like that was done. It just sounds like the dry docking it and probably refitting the whole thing. Maybe it just somehow lost the attachment. Oh, that's that's kind of sad.
Yeah, there was a spirit that we send into the over there, and that was the first spirit rescue that I did. And it was a young man who had died on board of an illness, and he thought that he was still alive and they were on their way back to port. And
Wow.
he had a wife and a young child, and he was looking forward to seeing them, and myself and two other mediums had to kind of tell him, you know, what happened. And you know, this was like 100 years ago, and that his wife and child were no longer in the physical world, and you know, we were going to help reunite them. And it was very strange because you know, I kind of walked the other two mediums through it, told them, you know, this is what use visualization in energy and just our love. And when he went into the light, I actually saw arms come out and reach out and pull him into the light.
Wow.
And after it was done, I saw it in my head. I saw him with his arm around his wife, and she was holding a baby. And it was just so intense. I was so damn excited because this was my first spirit rescue. I went running upstairs to the top deck to tell Andy. And he was just standing there. And I'm like, guess what happened? And he's like, yeah, okay. And like, to me, he had seen something at the same time that we were doing the spirit rescue on the top deck, and he saw someone walking along the side of the ship.
Wow.
The security guards that were there to keep an eye on us, you know, because they're not going to leave us unattended. And he walked over, talked to the guy, and there was nobody there.
Wow.
So he was all freaked out. So yeah, that ship was just, yeah, it was off the chain. And then to go back there and just like not have anything there, it was so strange.
Yeah, that's why when you hear stories about some of these properties and stuff coming up for sale, you kind of wonder what's going to happen when they get a new buyer. What are they going to do with them? And like the one that I just saw in the newspaper was Conjuring House. I guess that's back up for sale again, and I guess no one knows what's going to happen with that one. I can't believe the detail. I almost I can't believe it. I'm amazed at the detail that you get from these experiences and the clear stories that you can tell about it. Because I think I could train from now until I die, and I don't think I'll ever have that level of perception, because you get like a full story out of it. It's not like, oh, I saw like a door open and shut, or I saw this or that. Like I guess that happens to you also. But to be able to tell like that story with the sailor and the wife and the child and all that is just amazing. It's beautiful. Actually, I'm blown away. I'd love to hear more of those, but buddy, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to talk a little bit about the location, like Fort Adams as a location, because I know Maggie's very familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a million questions related to everything we just talked about, but I want to talk about Fort Adams because I had the privilege of, for the first time, going into Fort Adams last night. And it was like an impromptu, like kind of like a walk around, kind of like did a few little sessions here and there. I got to see a good part of the fort that I've never seen before, and it's incredible what they do there. But one of the big topics of conversation, of course, was your photograph, which you sent me with of the thermal and the is it a kid? Is a woman or? And that was huge. And then there was I heard it about 2 or 3 times last night, was a clip of a recording made by somebody, I think that's either on your team or in a team in Massachusetts that you guys are affiliated with, and it's like clear as day, little kid voices. Blows my mind.
Okay, so that was somebody on our team.
Yeah.
She got some really amazing EVP. Like, we were calling her the queen of EVP because the very first time we went to the fort, we weren't even investigating. They were giving us a tour, okay? Because we were going to start investigating and doing the ghost hunts and that. And so we were getting a tour, and she stayed behind in the officers' quarters. And she had a digital voice recorder and with her. She thought to bring it with her, which I thought was awesome, because it was a walkthrough. And I mean, she's a sweet lady. You know Nancy Leathers, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, yep.
But she's a sweet lady, right? And so she's got this little voice, and she's like, if there's anybody here, can you tell me your name? And then waits, and then she says, what is your name? And she waits, and then she asks a few other questions, and then she said, well, if you talk to me, thank you. And she rejoined us. So we're walking around the tour, and she's got her recorder to her ear, and she's got this look. I'm like, what is it? She said, I think I got something. So she went home, and when she asked if there's anyone here, please tell me your name, she got a man's voice, and it said Spaulding.
Wow.
And when she asked again, it was louder. It was like Spalding. Like, what's the matter? You can't hear me? I already told you, right? And so she is an ace researcher. I mean, she does research for a living.
Mm-hmm.
So she Googled, Spalding Fort Adams, and boop, up comes this article in the New York Times from 1888 about a torpedo explosion in the harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the victims was Lieutenant Lyman Spalding.
Wow.
It's like, yeah. And so she's also the one. One night we were getting ready for the ghost hunt. We had gotten there early. So we were in like the area that's kind of set up with tables, and we're eating our dinner. And she had heard that there were children in the office quarters. People had reported hearing, seeing, being touched by like hands, having their clothes tugged, like a child trying to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so she brought some little toys like from the dollar store, and she left them there, and she left her recorder there. She came back and we had dinner, Then she went back and she got a recording. Well, when she ever played it back, she had, I mean, you could hear them laughing, you could hear them playing. You could hear a child counting, like hide and seek. You can hear one say very loudly, "Daddy."
Yeah.
And so
this is what I heard last night. Kevin, it's as clear as day. It's like the kid is sitting in the room with the woman, which she probably is, and just like sitting there talking. And it's like you are right. It's
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's crazy.
So she played it for Rob McCormick, who is with the Fort Adams Trust. He's our main guy. He's a wonderful, wonderful man, and he knows so much about the fort. And he looks at her and he says, "You realize that I'm alone in the fort at night sometimes." Oh yeah, that was creepy. And we checked with the security people and everything, see if there were any kids around. There were no kids around. It was getting dark. I mean, there were no kids around. So yeah, that was really weird.
It's a weird place. I was fascinated by like the bowling alley. That was cool. It just like the sports that took place in the main yard. I was talking to Mike for a little bit about like baseball and how they played football and all that stuff. We did have an experience. I couldn't tell you where we were. We were inside a room. There was about 6 or 7 of us, and the woman I was with had the 360. What is that? Like a REM pod? It's a 360, and it just like it's there's lights all around the edges of it.
Spikes coming out of it.
Right, and I was talking about anything and everything. I started talking about the artillery units stationed at Fort Adams, and one went off. I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, can you do that again? And it went off again, and then it went. I'm like, can you light more lights up? Those went off, and it went all the way around the whole thing, stopped, and then we didn't nothing else, nothing before, nothing after, just that. But it was cool nonetheless.
Yeah, it sounds like a very, very, very cool place.
And we got to go in the upstairs. We got to do the overlook. You can see all Newport at night. It's absolutely beautiful.
Nice.
For Rhode Island, for history, it's an awesome place. For the paranormal, it's an awesome place. Cool. I would like to try and show this photo, Deb. I'm sorry. Show this photo, Maggie, if I could, and maybe you can talk about it a little bit. Let's see if the share screen option works.
Okay.
Let me see. Yeah. Okay. You see me?
I see you.
Okay.
I don't see a picture yet.
I'm gonna show a picture. Hold on. Can you see this? Are we looking at it?
No, we're looking.
I don't see it.
We still have.
You don't see this? No.
No. You're hitting it.
Oh, there. Yeah, that purple thing. You see the purple thing?
No.
The purple.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Nope. No.
Give me a minute.
When he shares it, it should come up as its own window, and then we'll drop us out, so it takes up the whole screen. But it'll come up just like me, or it'll look like me, Buddy, or you, like in terms of being in a box.
Yeah, it's shooting me. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Hold on. All right.
All right, hold on.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, now switch to the picture. Oh, now we're in the Matrix.
Oh, come on. Oh, shit.
Up there, buddy.
This is the joys
I usually have a tech guy with me, and he does all this silly tech stuff that I am attempting to do now that I cannot do.
Minimize your browser. Yeah. You got to make it bigger. Yeah, there you go.
All right.
And you got to rotate it 90 degrees to the right. Oh, no, you don't have to. No, you don't have to rotate it. My fault.
Yeah, yeah, right there. There we go.
That's right. Okay. So this is a picture that was taken by Andy Laird using a thermal imaging app for his smartphone. He was testing this app out. And what it is, you install the app, and then there was a little like camera thingy that goes on top of your smartphone. And he was using it. Myself and another investigator, Cindy, were in the Powder magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the Powder magazine. You go down, there's this long hallway that kind of curves around.
Yes,
the Powder magazine are on the right. The where the cannons used to go was on the left. So if you go all the way down to the end, that's where we were. We're all the way down to the end, and we were trying to communicate with a woman that I've gotten EVP. I got that picture of a figure. I think that's her. She seems to kind of gravitate towards me. Why she's in the Powder magazine, I have no idea. But we're trying to get her to communicate with us. And Andy came in, and he's like, is it okay if I hang out with you ladies? And we're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so he had this camera, and he was just looking through it. And he's like, oh, my goodness. And he says, Cindy, come over here. Maggie, you stay where you are. And all of a sudden, I could feel a presence behind me. And I said, she's behind me, isn't she? And Andy's like, yep. And Cindy's like, oh, she's like, wow, that's really cool. So she took a picture of the picture. And that's what that is. It's a picture of the picture. And so that colorful person in front with all the red and the green and everything, that's me. Mm-hmm. Not the best picture of me. Yeah. And then, but if you look behind where like that purple is, yeah, right there, there is a figure. And if you zoom in, I don't know if you can make it any bigger. Oh yeah, that's.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Oh, yeah, buddy, look at that. You can see the eyes.
Yep, it's a woman.
You see like cheekbones almost.
Yep,
that's awesome. The hair.
She's resting her hand on her bosom. You can see her dress has like an empire waistline.
Yeah.
Like it ties right here. I mean, you can
right at the waist. Yeah, I can see that.
The details and everything. That's incredible. Was like behind me was one of the rooms where the cannon were.
Wow.
That's where she was. She was standing in the doorway, like right behind me. And so Andy said, oh, Maggie, would you mind moving to the side? So I moved to the right, figuring if she's on my left, maybe he can get like a better shot. So as I moved to the right, he's like, oh no, she faded away. There's another picture where she's just like all blurry, and then she's gone. So
that's awesome.
I have a feeling I know who she is. A certain paranormal show went there, and they got her name.
Huh.
I was never able to get her name. I used to call her Elizabeth. I don't know why. The name popped in my head. But this pair of investigators that have a show, they got an EVP, and she gave them her name.
Wow.
So I know who she is. So
Uh,
I'm like,
Maggie, let me ask you something. With that battery that you captured this photo, that you Andy Lay captured this photo in, is it the one that's right behind the flagpole?
yeah.
Yeah, that's the same one that I had that with the REM pod. That's the very same. That's where we were at.
It's a very cave-like area.
Yeah. You go all the way down to the end. We went all the way down to the end.
Yeah.
The cage went all the way in, and that's the very room we experienced. There was about 6 of us sitting around in a circle.
Yeah.
That was that's a pretty creepy area.
Yeah, we also encountered the spirit of a soldier there. I've done a communication session. I think I was using a spirit box. Oh yeah, this is a good one. You do tours in Newport, ghost tours in Newport late at night. You could get people that have been imbibing, So one night I had this guy in my tour group, and we were in that area, and I had the spirit box going, and we were getting a male voice, and we had established that he was a military man, and he was an enlisted man, I believe. And this guy was like so obnoxious, and he said something like, really disrespectful, and this word came over the spirit box, and the first part was ass, and you can guess what the is. I swear on this, or will you guys get in trouble?
No, that's fine. You can swear.
You can swear all you want.
What came over the spirit box? It was asshole.
Yeah.
There was that asshole, just like that. And it was just, everybody just cracked up. I said, that'll teach you to be disrespectful.
Yeah.
Oh
my God.
Yeah, that was the funny thing that happened there. Yeah.
That's great. All right, buddy. So we're about 10 minutes over. Anything else you want to cover on Fort Adams? If not, we'll have to wrap it up because
one more quick question. As a paranormal investigator, Deb, I'm sorry, Christ, I keep calling Deb. Maggie, how important is it to do historical research before and or after a case?
It's extremely important. I mean, how are you going to verify what you get?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the reasons why I love being a paranormal investigator, is because the history, it just comes alive, and it's extremely important to do research, to do your due diligence. Sometimes we do research before, and if research is done before, it is not discussed with any of it's not discussed with the sensitives in the group.
Oh, of course, you want to keep them in the dark, essentially.
Definitely. And I know it really gets my husband mad when I don't tell him. See what he picks up. But yeah, so
do you find it helpful to use that information while on it? Like if you know specific information about a spirit that you might suspect to be there, you knew personal information about that person. Do you find that helpful?
Sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. We did a private case recently, and they did give us a full clearance, full disclosure. Thank you. Full disclosure. but I'm not going to give out a whole lot of detail, but they had told me what was going on because I was the lead investigator. I was a contact person. So I kind of knew what was going on. And then when we went in and Dave and Cindy were working together, they got some stuff that was totally different, you know,
Okay.
than what we thought was going on, you know. So you know, you never can tell. It's not always what you think, you know.
Right.
But we were able to remedy the situation. We met our goal, and the client was very happy.
That's all that matters.
So the spirit that they thought was there was probably there, but there was somebody else there too. And, you know, and once we, you know, took care, you know, sent that spirit into the light, everything was fine. So, and so it goes.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not always what you think. Yeah.
Right.
Even with research, even with, you know, knowing, you know, what people are experiencing, what they think, it's not always the way it is.
Right. Sometimes it's not even a ghost at all, right? I mean, sometimes it's 90 other things before it's a ghost.
Yeah, most of the time it's not.
Right.
But yeah, it's important to do research. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So unfortunately, we're at the hour 12 mark. So Megan, I don't want to take up your whole Sunday night, but this was amazing, and I feel like we've only really hit the tip of the iceberg. I had so many questions. I had like a page of questions. We probably got through about 5 or 6 of them. So if you enjoyed it as much as we did, hopefully, Buddy can get you back on at at another time to kind of go through some of the details of the cases. And I know on another show you talked about demons and elementals and all these other things, and I would just love to kind of pick your brain on that stuff. So hopefully, Buddy, we can get Maggie back on.
Absolutely.
So, Buddy, in terms of wrap up, I know there's some a little bit of drama going on with the Varnum Armory. Do you want to talk about that a little, or is that best left outside?
I would love to talk about that. If you have 2 quick minutes. An organization I'm very much involved with, the Varnum Continentals, the Varnum Memorial Armory. There's a small faction within that armory that is not for the work that is going on there, like the incredible historical preservation that they're doing, the conservation of uniforms and whatnot. They want to stop that. So tomorrow, they're hosting a membership meeting where they're going to run a vote to vote either for Patrick Donovan and to continue all the great things that they do at the armory, or vote in the opposing faction, which will take away everything that they've built over the last 7 years or so and make it back into archaic men's social club. As great as it was as a social club, it's come leaps and bounds, and as one of Rhode Island's most premier and fantastic museums, where you can go and just like see living history in front of you that's conserved for future generations, that was used by some of our heroes that lived in the same land we call home. So if you are interested in remotely in helping this fantastic organization, you need to do just 2 things. One, become a member, which you can do so on Varnum. I think it's VarnumContinentals.org. It's a $35 membership fee, and tomorrow night, if you can't make it to Varnum in East Greenwich, that's more than acceptable, because they have a Zoom option that you can use, and you can vote for Patrick Donovan and vote for Rhode Island history and vote for everything that they do there, which is absolutely incredible. Whew. With that said, next week you can join us. We'll be live on the road at a special location. It's a haunted location. I'll be with the King. Kevin will not be with us, as he cannot be, but I'll be with the King and his wife and Ocean State Paranormal, and we'll have a grand old time. Or maybe we won't. Maybe we'll be like dead quiet and nothing will even happen. But that's paranormal investigating. It's not always what you see on TV. It's not always exciting at all, ever. Exactly. And then join us again the week after. We come back on the 8th or 8th. We come back on November the 7th with Bob Christopher, who's also a paranormal investigator, and we look forward to that.
Excellent. All right, thank you, buddy. Maggie, any final thoughts you'd like to say, or any sites you want me to put up? I did put up your Facebook page. I put up the page for your group, but anything else you'd like to mention? The floor is yours.
I just want to thank you for having me and for listening to my stories. I hope I didn't go on too long.
No.
And,
No.
and I look forward to investigating with Buddy again. Just, good luck with the Varnum Armory. I would, if I became a member, I would love to become a member because, I like to support historical things. But if I did that, my father would probably roll over in his grave because he was a Kentish guard.
Oh, God.
I did this. So,
they recently made up and share different things, but there's that long-standing. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, my a longtime member of the Kentish Guards. He was in the color guard, and so I can't do that.
Yeah,
look, because it's very, very important to preserve history. I mean, I live right down the street from Nathaniel Green Homestead. I actually live on their property. The old Nathaniel Green plantation was huge.
Amazing. Another amazing organization that I help to promote as much as possible. I love Nat Green.
They do a great job, and the Payne House is like a mile away. And our group spent like 3 years investigating the Payne House. We were the first group to investigate there.
Oh, wow.
So that place means a whole lot to me. So it's very important to preserve our history. So thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and anyone that's watching this show hasn't watched all of them. We have done probably 2 or 3 shows from the Varnum Armory, either doing EVPs or Spirit Box, or then we had one where one of the gentlemen that works there actually took us through it, and they have so much. There's so many artifacts going all the way back to the Revolutionary War, pre-Revolutionary War, in such a small space. It kind of blew my mind, the amount of things they have in that space. So I would hate to see it, but I am going to become a member, and I will vote virtually tomorrow night.
Nice.
Excellent. So we're going to wrap up Legit Paranormal, the Sunday, October 24th edition, for Maggie Florio, Buddy Thayer, me, the Genius Kev. We are done. We're out. The next shows from the Legit family will be tomorrow night is Legit Basketball, which I will be hosting. Then Thursday night is Legit Football and Legit Basketball. So full sports, and then we'll be back to Paranormal on the weekends. Thank you all for tuning in. And thank you again, Maggie Florio, for being our guest tonight.
Thank you.